Thanks for joining us at Church Experience Online. If you'd like to learn more, get connected, or help fuel the movement by giving, just click on the appropriate links on our website.
Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on. You got that healing that I want. Just like they say in the song. Until the dawn. Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on, babe. Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on. Just like they say in the song. Until the dawn. Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on.
Last week, we began this teaching series by talking about sexual desire. Now, I know that some of you were probably gone and you're thinking, why did I miss that week? Like, that sounds exciting. And it was. I'll be honest with you, it was an exciting week. We had a few moments together. We had to kind of ease the tension. And if you were here, you would probably remember, in fact, I know you can't forget this moment, okay? All right, so that was a moment that we had together. It wasn't the only moment. We also had this moment. Oh, man, it's disturbing. Okay, take that down. It was bad, man. We tried to ease the tension a little bit that was in the room as we talked about sexual desire. Now, I know some of you are marked for life after that. I apologize. But, what we were wanting to tackle last week was this important topic of sexual desire, because sexual desire, I think, for some people is viewed as almost like it's a dirty word, it's a bad thing, when actually God breathed sexual desire into our lives when He created us. It's put it in us as part of our human nature. Like, that's a part of our makeup, just as much as anything else. That appetite, that sexual desire. Yet, we also talked about how it's very potent, and that desire, when mixed with self-centeredness, can lead to self-destruction. And how that desire has to be submitted, like every desire, not just the sexual desires of our life, but every desire in our life needs to be submitted to God and under His direction and guidance. And as He changes and reforms us, and then He fills it, and it's not just that, like, okay, sexual desire when mixed with selfishness is bad for you. It's like sexual desire mixed with God's way of doing it is really good for you, because He created it for several things. He created it for a man and a woman, obviously, to come together in marriage and have children, so that's a great purpose, and He created it for them to have pleasure in that relationship, for them to experience relational intimacy, something that would draw them close to each other. So He created it not just to produce children, but to produce a relationship and to cultivate that relationship is a very important part of what He created us for. We touched on how desire can be destructive. And perhaps if you want to pick up where we left off and take a few notes, have a weekly that you were given on the way in. If you want to flip that over and write a few things down on the back, I'd encourage you to write this down, is that desire can deceive us. Being aware of this potential deception in our lives, far beyond just sexual desire, is so helpful. Because you and I want things naturally that are not always good for us. Like in our heart, like we desire things, we want things that are not always good for us. It's so important to know. Galatians chapter 5, verse 17. It says, "For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in," listen to this, "they are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want." So our flesh, our natural desires that we're born with, like how we come into this world, those desires of following the urges, doing what I want to do, those are in conflict with what the Spirit of God, who lives in us when we start to follow Jesus and give our lives to Him and ask for the forgiveness of our sins. It says His Holy Spirit comes inside of us. It says that's in conflict with what we, and the Bible calls our flesh, our human nature, how that feels. So there's like our natural self, our flesh, and then there's the Spirit of God, and those two, it says, are in conflict with each other, so that you don't do whatever you want. Now, a child, a young kid, they do whatever they want, right? I have kids, I know how this works. Dad, I want this. No, we're not going to do that. But I want that. No, we're not doing it. But I really, really want it. All right, now we're past like you already know the right thing. Now you're trying to make a wrong choice. Because we want things, and how many kids have been ruined by that, right? Just doing whatever they want. And never being told no boundaries around it. Like it's destructive. So the Bible tells us that we're not to do just whatever we want. And it goes on to give us an awesome description of the two different paths you can take. Verse 19, it says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. So it gives us this pretty clear and precise description of what that kind of life looks like. And then it contrasts that in verse 22. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So it contrasts these two different kinds of ways that you can live, and you see the outcome of those two different lives when you see it described in this way, right? I mean, you can see one life marked by sin and rage and selfishness and all those things that described, and then you see another life that's marked by love and joy and peace. And I mean, it's so clear on the page, but when it comes into our own life, and going back to verse 17, where it talks about doing whatever we want, then it gets complicated. Because it says that the Spirit is in conflict with the flesh, so that you're not to do whatever you want, and we want to do things sometimes in our desires which deceive us, that can destroy us. So there's a spiritual battle going on for our hearts, and it impacts us far beyond just the sexual part of who we are. It impacts all of our lives because we're driven by desires. So are you being driven by the urges of your flesh, the desires of your human nature? Are you being driven by what you want to do? Because that's the way our world operates. Like, just do what you want, what feels good, like what you think is best for you. And that road, if you go down that road, that leads to destruction. Or are you being driven by the Spirit of God? Are you trying to listen to Him and follow Him and let Him lead you? Because that road leads to life, and that road is what's actually fulfilling in the end. It's a big deal. God makes this clear in Colossians chapter 3. Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, it says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Here it is again, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. Now hold on, like, okay, I get it, like it's a big deal, but like this makes it sound like it's pretty intense. I mean, it's talking about like put to death these things. Like death is pretty strong. That's pretty final, you know, and then like the wrath of God is coming. It sounds pretty violent and destructive. I mean, this is an intense kind of, yeah, and it is. And why is it so serious? Why so serious? Why make such a big deal of it? Jennifer's younger brother, he's 4 years younger than me, Brent, when he was 15 years old, I taught him to surf. I was living in San Diego at the time and took him out to the beach, put him on a surfboard, taught him how to get up, surf, and since then, we've surfed a lot together. I think I've surfed in like 9 different states around the country, most of those with him. We've been a lot of different places to surf together, and we try to do it at least once a year. We get together and surf, and it's just a hobby, fun thing kind of for us. Well, after he left California, he went to be a missionary in New Zealand. And he was in New Zealand for about 2 years, and in all his free time, whenever he wasn't doing his thing, he would go to the beach and surf. And he just got really good at surfing. So when he came back and we went out in the water together, I realized that the student, because I had taught him, had now become the teacher. And he had surpassed me in skill. And so, that's always hard to take. You teach like your little brother, in this case, little brother-in-law, and then he, one-ups you. So we're hanging out together. I think we were in North Carolina, family vacation kind of thing all together, and we're going out to hit the beach and catch some waves together. Well, now that he's all that, right? Yeah, he's all that. And so he grabs his surfboard, and we both put our ankle leashes on, and we're walking out to the water, and he just tucks his board under, and he just takes off running. I think maybe just to show me what's up, get out there a little ahead of me, catch the first wave. He just goes jogging, out into the water, throws his board out there, jumps on the board, and just starts paddling out. It looked so crisp, like he'd done it a million times. It looked so good. Like, it was like, man, like he looks like he's like pro, and I'm standing there on the beach, and I'm looking around, and everyone's watching, and they're like, hey, let's watch this guy. He looks like he's good. So I'm standing on the beach. I taught him, right? He's like, I'm here like on the beach, so hey, I taught him how to do this. So I'm not wanting to be left out, and having my brother-in-law one-up me. And so I see this vision of what could be, because I watch him and just how smooth it was, and I wanted to, be that and not be left behind and not be outdone, by my former student. And so I grabbed my surfboard under my arm, thinking, I got this vision of how this can go. It's going to be all cool, like go jog out in the waves, throw the board on it and paddle out. It's going to be great, catch a wave. So I put the board under my arm, and I start jogging out into the water. Well, I forget that I have the ankle leash on around my ankle, and it gets wrapped around both of my feet, and I trip in like ankle-deep water, and I fall flat on my face. And it was so embarrassing because like everyone's watching, And what I had pictured was so cool. It was so awesome. What actually happened was so embarrassing, laying there like flat down, like face down in like just ankle-high water. So embarrassing. But, I was chasing after something that I thought, I had this vision for it, and it really tripped me up. And I wasn't paying attention, had my eyes on something else. That's what sin does, really. You go chasing after something you think is great, and you got this vision for, oh man, I want this. I want this. And then you go down that road. And then that gets tangled around your life. It tells us in the Bible that sin entangles us, the sin that so easily entangles. It tangles you up. It trips you up. And you find yourself lying face down or worse. And man, it really messes you up. And sin in all its forms. We're talking in the narrow topic of sexual sin, which impacts many people. But the broader topic of sin and our desires, man, it can really mess you up. And you go chasing after like, man, this is what I want. And you're not paying attention. You get your eyes off of where they should be on Jesus, and you get your eyes on a lesser thing, and it trips you up, messes you up. So that's why it's a big deal. Sin destroys, and sexual sin can wrap itself around you. And man, it can keep you from, when it wraps itself around you and trips you up, it keeps you from fully following Jesus. That's the thing. We want to be freed up to really enjoy life. Do you remember the description of what the life is like in the Spirit of God? That's an awesome life. Love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. That's an awesome life. And that's full-on living, and that's the kind of life that's fulfilling in the end. It doesn't come with all the extra drama and all the extra guilt and the weight of shame. That's a freed up life. That's living life to the full. Life marked by love and joy and all that. That's so good. But sin destroys, and in your notes, here's what it does. Here's what sin does to you, all kinds of sin, not just sexual sin, but here's what sin steals from you. It steals love. It's in your notes. It steals joy, and it steals peace. It robs those things from you. And because of this, God teaches us to not allow even a hint of it, and specifically talking about sexual sin in Ephesians 5:3, it says, don't even allow a hint of it in your life, not just a little bit of it. One author named Bill Perkins referenced some of the key leaders in the Bible. Lest we take the idea of sexual sin as something that doesn't apply to us, he referenced some of the main leaders in the Bible that you read about. And he says, if you think that you can't fall into sexual sin in some way, think about it. If you think you can't fall into it, then you're godlier than David, stronger than Samson, and wiser than Solomon. Just to be aware of it, man, that the enemy has used this form of sin to take out and take down and hinder, hold back some people who really were strong and some people who really did some great things for God. And so this is something to be aware of and to not take lightly. I think another reason for all of us to take this topic seriously, not only because it could apply to you, it could apply to someone that you know in your life that you may be able to help and encourage as you learn biblical truth and God's way of finding fulfillment in sexual desire versus our world's version, which is a cheap imitation, a less than version of what God intended for you, you can pass that on and help. And it may be your children one day if you have children. It may be someone you mentor or invest your life in, or maybe someone that you work next to or that you're related to. But by you learning this is something that you can pass on. But here's another reason we should all be aware of this topic and interested in it, is that we're all susceptible to temptation personally, but more broadly speaking, as a community, like sexual sin, it devalues certain things, certain qualities. It actually causes people to feel underloved. Let me explain it through a research survey that was done. It's very, very fascinating. They took a group of guys. It sounds a little messed up, but what they did is they took a group of guys. They showed them pornographic images over a period of time. And then they inquired of them what the result was. So they showed them these pornographic images over this period of time, and then they did research and found out how it changed these guys. This is the 3 things that they found out from the survey. One is that they found out that lust makes you more critical of those you love. After viewing these images, the men judged other women more critically. So it's a huge source. Sexual sin, and specifically lust in all its different forms, causes people to feel underloved. Like I said, these guys that view these images, they actually became more critical of other people, even people that they loved. Number 2, lust causes you to devalue people. This is what they found from the survey. It causes you to devalue people. After repeated exposure to such materials, these men judged their wives as less satisfying, less attractive, and less desirable. So they devalued them, and those women must have felt underloved significantly because of that. Number 3, lust lowers your level of relationship commitment and faithfulness. So these guys that they did this test group on, says they also reported feelings of less love for their wives and lower commitment to them. It's from an article called Pornography in Your Marriage, John Bury. Interesting study, but incredibly implicating because it steals love was meant to be there. But not only does it steal love, it steals life from what could be something great. Sexual desire meant to be something that fulfills and that frees. And you think about how much drama comes with sexual immorality. I mean, the weight of all the secrecy and the guilt and the cheating and the lying and the behind the scenes and don't let anybody know and the mystery and all the regrets and the consequences, just the straight up drama, the weight that you carry, the actual sexual sin. As one friend of mine shared with me, he said, you know what, I think the sexual sin is like 10%. 10% of all the adversity and all the challenge that comes with it. It's all the 90% is all the stuff that comes into your life from that sin, that actual act itself. It's a big deal. And so that's why God, again, says not even a hint. And you know, this is possible. In fact, there's an example of one man that may be familiar with his story, Job. In the Bible, is a great man of God. Job chapter 31, verse 1, he decides that he's going to set a high standard in this area with his eyes, and he's not going to let even just a little bit of compromise creep into his life because he knows it's like a cancer that'll spread. And so it says this in Job 31:1, I made a covenant with my eyes. I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young woman. That's a commitment that he made, a covenant that he made. And so it's possible, and it's a great example, but this is hard. This is a high standard because you and I we live in a culture that not only celebrates, but sells everything based on sex, right? It doesn't matter if it's a pair of shoes or a car. Like, we sell everything through sex. It's crazy. It's like, just like it gets people's attention like that. It's why they do it. It pulls you in. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Verse 15, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 15. Let me jump on to, or verse 5, I'm sorry. Let me jump on to the second part of this verse. It says, we take captive every thought. Every thought. You see that? Every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We take captive every thought. Not just like we give God part of our mind, like we give him the whole thing. We don't allow compromise in because when it comes in, again, it's like a cancer that takes over. And flirting with sin is dangerous in any area. And sexual sin is very dangerous. Flirting with sin is dangerous every time.
Got to look for love. Look for love when you're out. Look for love. Look for love.
Some of you are thinking, she deserved that. Messing with people. And you know, sexual temptation and sin is dangerous. So don't flirt with it. And I put it this way in your notes. Maybe you want to write it down. Don't flirt with it. Run from it. Get away from it. You know, just hang out with it. You know, maybe it's a little bit. I'm just going to see how it feels. Just kind of ease my way into it. I'm just going to kind of check it out. Like, you're messing with sin. You're going to get pulled in. It's going to destroy you. Those of you who are around the next generation, you got students, children around you, I want you to think about this. By you just flirting with something dangerous, you're like, I got this under control. Maybe you do. I propose you probably don't as much as you think you do. I just have a little eye candy here and there. I just have a little bit in my life. Think about how that influences, impacts others. One expert said, sometimes our children may fail to listen to us. Rarely will they fail to imitate us. Sons learn from their fathers whether to stare at or look away from dancers, cheerleaders, and commercials with seductive women. Daughters also notice where dad's eyes goes and mom's. What are you teaching others through how you live? People are watching you. And it's not your words that they see. They watch how you live your life. I want to share a number of different experts and their opinion on this specific topic of our sexual desires and specifically how that impacts us. Richard Baxter wrote, keep as far away from you can from temptation because it feeds and strengthens sin that you would like to overcome. And listen to what he says, Richard Baxter. He says, lay seeds to your sins and starve them out. Is any sin? Starve it out because keeping away the food and the fuel, which is their maintenance and their life. That's how you win. You flirt with it, just let a little bit in here and there. What's happening is you're fueling a fire. You're keeping that fire alive. You win by starving it out. When you just flirt with it, you're keeping that alive. And any moment it could flame up. And you're allowing it to continue to grow in your life. And growing is exactly what it does. Just like unhealthy things like bacteria or fungus, things that grow in the dark, it grows when you feed it. I'll put this one on the screen for you. Rob Wagner, he says, lust always wants more. It is, check that word out, it's progressive in its nature. It's progressive in its nature. Another author, this is Randy Alcorn. I referenced him last week. He wrote the book, The Purity Principle. He says, one man wrote to me, sin always escalates. How many times have I heard men say, I'm not that bad? And I always add, yet. I always add, yet. It's a continual, progressive, escalating thing is what lust is. And it grows until it becomes more and more twisted and convoluted and perverted and dark and destructive until it eventually blows up and destroys a relationship, blows up and destroys a future, blows up and destroys what could otherwise be a healthy, God-given, fulfilling part of your life. And life is stolen from it. So it grows. It's progressive in nature. One more author, this guy named Joshua Harris, he wrote a book about this topic specifically, and he says that that's the payoff of lust, a continual lust for more. You won't be able to sleep with enough people. You won't be able to view enough pornography. You can gorge yourself on lust, but you're always going to be hungry. That's interesting. You're always going to want more. You'll be trapped in a never-ending pursuit of wrong desires, reaching for something that cannot be grasped. God says not even a hint because you can't give in to lust demands and hope to pacify it. It always grows, and as it does, lust will rob you of your ability to enjoy true godly pleasure. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 20. It says, death and destruction are never satisfied, and neither are human eyes. Our eyes are never satisfied. They always want more. And this is why when the Bible talks about greed being dangerous, this is why greed is dangerous. And that was listed in one of those ways of the flesh earlier. Greed is dangerous because greed causes you always to want what's next and never enjoy what you have now. And people get caught up in this. There's probably people caught up in this right now as we speak. And it's like, well, when I get this, then I'm going to be happy. When I get an extra zero, on my check, when I get an extra amount in my account, when I get this paid off, when I get to this stage, when I get this promotion, when I get to this place, then I'll be happy, then I'll have made it. And no, you won't, because there'll be a next. You'll get there and you realize, oh yeah, then there's this. And you'll always be striving and never attaining, and you won't have fulfillment because you'll always be focused on next. And the thing is that God wants to fulfill you now, and so you learn contentment. You learn that the Bible talks about gratefulness, and you can still work towards a better future, but in now you say, God, thank you, and I'm grateful, and I'm content in you because I'm finding my fulfillment in you, not in what's next. And that's why greed's dangerous, because it steals that from you. It steals life from you. And God says, oh, find joy now, and gratefulness now, here. And so lust is the same way, but in the lust of the eyes, it says, the Bible says in Proverbs 27, it's always pulling you in. You'll never have enough. You'll always be hungry. You always want more of that, and it never satisfies. It never feeds you like the true desire that God gave you to be fulfilled in the right way. And that will never fulfill you the way that the world promotes it. You know, it's a lot like fishing. You know, we get lured in. There's the bait out there on the hook. Grab onto it, and man, we're stuck. Looks appealing right on the outside, but then we're stuck. You know what? Let's have a little fun with this, all right? Because I know this is a tense topic. Some of you just be like, just give me a minute, Brandon. Like, you're going deep today. It's like, let's just have a little fun with this, all right? Come on, check it out.
He's a monster. Woo-hoo-hoo! Ty, he's not even a pound. Maybe not to you, but pull out your camera. Here, make sure you're really close on him. Okay. Hashtag world record, baby. Dude, I am so sorry about that.
Bro, what are you doing? Hey, what kind of bait is this?
I know. Oh my gosh.
Oh, is that real? I caught a fish! Yes!
Touch it.
No! Give it a kiss.
Dadgummit. Oh my gosh. You just caught a lobster. Is that a joke? How is that even possible?
Dude, I've got a freaking huge
Dude,
fish.
I think he has a big fish.
Oh, dude.
No! Oh, Dad!
This dude coming in the water. No, razor!
Are you kidding me?
Broke my super thin razor.
It's funny, but it's not so funny when it gets real, right? When it gets real in our lives, man, we get hooked, we get pulled in. And you know the thing about fishing, the whole idea is to deceive, right? To sneak up on something or to deceive it with a bait or a lure. You know, a cast net is one of the more old school, ancient, if you will, forms of fishing. And I will admit I'm not an expert fisherman, but I have some friends who are. And the thing is with the cast net, you sometimes will use this to catch live bait so that you can go catch something bigger. But the whole idea is you're trying to throw this out, and there's fish out there. Maybe there's some little shrimp. They're out there enjoying life, you know, swimming, having a lot of fun, right? You sneak up on them. You throw this puppy out there, and hope is that you can pull them in, reel them in. You got them stuck now, and that's game over, right? That's game over for those fish because you're going to use them for fish food, right? So for some bigger fish. That's all done for them. And they thought they were having a good old time, and then it's over. You know, this whole idea of fishing, you know, and just how it illustrates to what we're talking about today, I just think is really powerful. You know, they literally have a form of lures made by a company called DOA. Stands for Dead on Arrival. And doesn't that apply? You know, and you get your lure out there, or maybe you get your live bait. You put a little fish, a little shrimp, a little worm on that hook, and you dangle it out there. And if you're a fisherman, the whole idea is you're trying to entice, by what you have on that line, you're trying to entice the fish you're trying to catch. So that it will take a bite into that lure or into that live bait and get hooked. And once it's hooked, then you got it, right? Then you pull it in, and it's DOA. They're done, right? And interesting, this particular lure has a bite mark. You can't see it from where you sit. You can take a look at it afterwards, but it literally has teeth mark. You can literally see in this lure where it was actually a flounder, certain kind of fish would come and take a big bite out of this, Thankfully for it got away. But it was flirting with temptation. This lure pulled it in. Had it not gotten away, it would have got hooked. 1 inch in the other direction, game over. And this is how our enemy works. It's how the devil, we've talked before about how we have an adversary, we have an enemy, the devil is trying to pull us in, and he tries to lure us in. He just hangs that out there. He just hangs the temptation out in front of you, and he knows exactly where you're weak. Not just in sexual sin, but in any area of your life. And he says, hey, why don't you come on over here? Why don't you take a look at this? And he just pulls us in, and he gets us to flirt with it and maybe take a little bite out of it. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. There's all kinds of lures that could pull you in. I mean, you can get a tackle box filled with different kinds of lures. But it doesn't matter if it's a small temptation. It doesn't matter if it's a big, shiny temptation, looking all pretty, and a lot of bling to it. It doesn't really matter. Either way, you take a bite out of it, and you're hooked. You're stuck, right? That's how it works. Come on, just come on, flirt around a little bit with it. It'll be a little fun. You come on, have a good time. Come on, just hang out, right? You can do this. It's okay. Everybody does it. No one's going to find out. Not that big of a deal. Done it before. Just come on. And then you take a bite out of it, what happens? You're hooked. You're stuck. You're on the line. Now there's consequences, real consequences, and it gets real fast. And so that's why we learn not to flirt with it, but to run from it, because it can destroy. And man, that's sin, and it's a continual current. It's an unending riptide trying to suck us out and steal life from us. So how do you win? I want to give you 2 really practical things here, just real briefly. How do you win? Specifically in this area, this alluring area of temptation. You know, I think in some ways it's a lot like health and fitness. As you get older, you have to think more about it. When you're young, you just run around and you just stay real active. You don't have to worry about, stay fit too much. You just kind of just do your thing. You eat as much sugar cereal before you want, right before bed. You just eat candy. All that's all good. And you get a little bit older, you have to focus on trying to stay healthy and all that, and you see how it impacts your life. But the more I've read on it and studied fitness, the more I realize there is so many different and opposing sometimes viewpoints on how to be healthy and what to eat, what not to eat. All that's just so complicated. But I found a lot of it comes into 2 categories. I don't understand it at all, and I will not claim to be an expert in this area, but it seems like a lot of people say this comes down to 2 things to stay healthy, in large part, what you can control. It comes down to what one of my friend's parents said, move more and eat less. The best plan for fitness I've ever heard. Move more, eat less. It comes down to moving more, staying active, in some way staying fit, keep your body, functioning and all the cardiovascular parts of your body, and being active and all that, and eating less or eating healthy at least, eating the right things, putting the right fuel in your body, if you will. So it comes down to what you do with your body and what you put in your body, and there's so many different viewpoints on that. There's so many factors and body types, and that's just crazy. I'm not getting into that, but it comes down, it seems like, to what you do with your body and what you put in your body. What you do with your body, what you put in with your body. If you want to be healthy, what you do with your body, what you put in to your body. And I think in this area of sexual desire specifically, and you can apply this to the broader part of our desires following the Lord, I think there's 2 things that kind of comes down to. It comes down, from just my perspective on this, from when I see the Bible, it comes down to the spiritual and the practical. It comes down to the spiritual and the practical, and really all things are spiritual in that sense, but let me explain what I mean, the spiritual and the practical. It comes down to the spiritual. Jesus has to be at the center. For you to win in this area of your life, in any area of your life, Jesus has to be at the center. Because you were made to worship something. You were made to crave something. You were made to chase after something. And if you're not chasing after Jesus, if he's not the king of your life that you worship and follow, then you know what? You'll put something else on that throne. Because you're hungry for something and you'll chase after something else. And really, ultimately, if it's not him on the throne, it's really you, but you're trying to find that and fulfillment in that, in many other things, such as sexual promiscuity and sexual immorality and all the forms and fashions of trying to find fulfillment. Yet fulfillment, in this case, it's not lasting, that just leaves you hungry for more, and you chase different aspects of it. You chase different opportunities and situations, and man. So Jesus has to be at the center. This is the most important thing, the spiritual. Jesus has to be at the center. And you have to be living for him, and there's so much to what that looks like, and there's all that. We're not going to get into all that. But right now, you need to know that you have to be pursuing him, living for him. But then there's the practical. There's the spiritual and the practical, and that's where I want to give you just a couple things on the practical. Because if you don't have a plan and you leave here and you just try, then you will probably fail. Because maybe you've tried to change something in your life. Maybe back a few weeks ago on January 1st, you tried to change something because it was a new year and you thought maybe that would be the catalyst to spark something new in your life. And we talked about how to actually do that and how to rebuild your life. If you missed that, you can go back and listen online. We talked about how to actually do that, but some perhaps just nonchalantly, I'm going to do something new in my life, and maybe that faded after a few weeks. Maybe you've been there. It's because just trying to change something usually does not work. It's only when you train and you have a plan and you fully commit to it. And so how can we do this in this specific area? Let's focus on this area of the sexual purity in our lives. Two things. Here's a great quote for you. I'm going to put it on the screen as well. Randy Alcorn, he says, in moments of strength, make decisions that will prevent temptation in moments of weakness. So now is the time for us to come up with a plan, not in the moment of passion, not in the moment of distraction, not in the moment of opportunity or temptation. You'll fail if you try to come up with your plan in that moment, because what you want to do will have a lot stronger pull than what you should do in that moment. So number one, in these last two things here in your notes, if you want a practical plan how to win in this area, call for reinforcements. Call for reinforcements. You know, it's a battle. And I want to challenge you not to fight alone. Listen, last week, someone put a response card in the offering bucket. Let me read to you what it read. It was anonymous. This is what they wrote. They said, please pray for me. I have fought this on my own and can't do it. Perhaps that person's here today in one of our services. And I would just say to you, if that was you that wrote that, I have no idea who that was, you got it right. And I did pray for you. But you got it right. You can't do it alone. And so you're actually a huge step ahead now, because you know that you fought alone and you didn't win. You weren't meant to fight alone. I had such a gift given to me by a mentor of mine, Pastor Kevin Myers of 12 Stone Church, which many of you are familiar with him. One time I think it was in his home, it was last fall, and we were talking about the church. They've been such a huge part of encouraging us, supporting us. He's mentored me now for 4 years, now just poured his life into me. And I said, I can't imagine what this would have been like without you. I can't imagine doing this without you, like starting this thing. And you know what he said? He said, you wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you do it? We have a partnership here. We have a friendship. That was such a gift, because I think it's a glimpse into how God looks at us and how he created us in community. You don't have to do this alone. Why would you? Like, I can't do it alone. Great, you've discovered a really good principle here. That God did not design for you to fight alone. He designed for us to fight together. And that's when we're strong. We stand side by side. We battle together. That's how we win. You're isolated, you're vulnerable. And the dangerous part about sexual sin is because of the nature of it and the shame and the guilt that are attached to it, it's kept in secret, right? And that's not something you openly talk about in general. The casual conversation at Starbucks, what's going on? Hey, man, I'm struggling with sexual sin, bro. Just throw it on the table. It's like that doesn't come up when you're sipping your cappuccino, whatever. It just doesn't tend to be in the mix of the conversation. And because of that, you tend to fight alone. So this is easy said, call for reinforcements, but it's really hard to do to get backup. But you don't need a lot of people, but you need one or two people in your corner. And if you're married, then that person is your spouse, and you can still have another person too and figure that out. But if you're not married, you need to find a good friend that you can trust. You can find somebody in your life that you can trust and share everything with them. Not just the sin. We know that, okay, I made a mistake, but man, you need to share the temptation, because it's good to talk about sin, but it's even better to talk about areas of temptation, because then you know where you're weak. You know what you need to avoid. You need to put boundaries around, be careful of. That's how you win. Call for reinforcements. Have a 24-hour rule that you won't let anything, whether it's a significant temptation or whether it's a sin, that within 24 hours you won't let go by before you tell somebody about it in your life that's close. If you're trying to overcome and fight your way out of an area where you've faced failure before, you be open. Because you let some time pass and it's hard to have that conversation. I know you're saying, man, I just don't know. And what are they going to think? How are they going to respond? What are they going to think of me? And it's all lies from the devil to get you to keep it to yourself because it's in the dark, just like fungus. It's just going to grow. It's a bacteria. It's going to grow. You got to bring it to the light. And that's where the healing comes. And so you can have all these reasons not to share what you need to share. And you need to have that courageous conversation. And hopefully they'll be met with love and forgiveness or support or accountability. But either way, you can only control what you do, and you have to get it out in the open. So some of you have to leave today and go make a tough phone call. Sit down with somebody. Do it now because everything in you is going to fight once you leave here to keep it to yourself. Who's that person for you? And some might say, well, I don't know if I have someone who really follows the Lord and believes in Him. And man, one of the things I love about how we come together is that we have opportunities to connect with people through what we do, whether it's being a part of a serving team or we're getting ready to start here in a couple of weeks, our life groups again. Last fall, there was a ton of people that took us up on this and joined one of the life groups. They got connected to other people in relationships. They got to know some people. And so now those people, as they hear these words, they're the ones sitting there thinking they have a few names rolling through their mind of people that they could maybe talk to if they would choose to do so. Just getting connected is super important. Let's move on. This last one, just on the practical side of things, initiate a media audit. Initiate a media audit. I want to challenge you to filter your media in all forms, whether it's what comes in through your television, through your phone, through your computer, through print media. We live in a media influenced and dominated society, and we receive so many messages every day, every week. And a lot of those messages have been sexualized, like we talk about. And I want to challenge you to filter what comes into your life through the episodes that you watch, the movies that you watch, the magazines that you read, anything that comes into your life. I want to challenge you to filter it. Let me give you something real practical here. This is a website that Jennifer and I have used, I don't know, maybe up to 10 years now. We've used this for a long time. It's called Plugged In Online. I'm going to put it up here on the screen for you. I'll encourage you to write this down. It will take you less time to do what I'm going to tell you to do than what it'll take you to watch a trailer for a movie. It's a Christian website. We've done this for many years now. We're going to go watch a movie, especially if you're going to go to the theater and put $10 into your movie ticket. I highly suggest doing this before you go to the movie. And you can skim through the review they put together. And they just put it out there like this is what's going on in the movie. Not like this is a good, bad movie. There's sections in there. Here's what's in there with violence. Here's what's in there with profanity. Here's what's in there with sexuality. And you could skim through that. And our topic today, sexuality, you can read a paragraph, and it will tell you everything sexually related in that movie. So you can skim through that, or your spouse can skim through that, or if you're with a group of friends, someone can skim through it and be like, man, there's some nudity in this, and man, there's a lot of, man, we shouldn't watch this movie. Let's go on, let's check out a different movie. Let's not waste our time. Man, we've passed over so many movies, and I haven't regretted a single one of them. In these many years that we've done that, it takes less time than it takes you to read the review of the movie or watch the trailer to do this. Just pull it up on your phone. I do this all the time if we're going to watch a movie. All right, hey, let's go check it out. I don't think we should watch this. And we have just a good mutual understanding on that. It's just how we roll, and it's been our lives better for it, and our kids' lives are going to be better for that because of the kind of media we watch. Another verse I want to read to you, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. God's trying to protect you so that you can enjoy what He created for your benefit, not trying to limit or hold you back. I was trying to think back on when this was that we started this. I'm going to give you a couple other websites. This is about 11 years ago. I started a new job, and we all started, all those who were working there, we started this at the same time. We did it together, and we all decided to begin this Covenant Eyes. And it was really in response to someone else we had seen that had a big failure, and we decided that we were going to put this on all of our computers. Covenant Eyes is software that you put on your computer. XXXchurch.com, the other website you have there, is a free version of that. I've never used that, so I don't know how that one works compared, but it's a free version. The other one that we've used for, like I said, over a decade now is a few bucks a month, super cheap. But what it does is it installs a software on your computer that you cannot get on the internet. It's on all of our phones, computers, everything. You can't get online unless this is activated. You sign up with an accountability partner. So I have a couple that I've had for, like I said, over a decade. The same people, I just have them on there. And anytime you get online, anyone in our family, anybody gets online, that is registered in this database. If you try to disable and get online without it, it sends an alert to your accountability partner. So you literally cannot get online without this being activated, without somebody knowing about it. And it registers. It's super high tech. I don't understand how it works, but it reads everything that you go to, every website, every image, everything. Keeps track. It says when you went online, everything. And once a week, it sends a summarized report, and if anything gets flagged, they can see that. They can skim through everything if they want to, but they could see anything that got flagged. And so I've shared this with hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and I've given this idea to us. Do this, and that will remove what they say up to 50% of guys, and I don't know what the number is for women, 10, 20%, but of people who struggle currently with pornography. So in a room like this, if that stat held true in here, there's many in here who that's a struggle. This will help solve that. Put it on your computer, and it also comes with a filter. And so the filters are give or take because there's always things that can come through, but if you have kids, you need to have that on there too. We have it in our home, and it protects from our kids who now are getting, as they get older, savvy with computers, and they understand that, and schoolwork's being more on computers. Protects them from seeing things that could really do damage to their lives. So for those of you, especially your parents, but I think everybody should have something like this in their life, another boundary, another step. Why? Why go through all this? Why not just kind of like, it's all good, it's not a big deal. I'm going to let that be a part of my life and not worry too much about it. Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. Last verse I want to share today. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. We live in an area where you need sunglasses because we got so much sunshine. We love it. It's one of the things we love about living here. You ever got some stuff on your shades? Maybe you have some reading glasses, eyeglasses, and you got some stuff on your lenses, and you're looking out what otherwise would be a very beautiful scene, but you realize it's blurry. You realize there's some obstructions to your view. So what do? You take glasses off and you clean it up, put them back on, and you can see clearly again. The Bible tells us simply that those who have a pure heart see God. Maybe you're struggling in your faith. Maybe you don't feel like you're growing these days. Maybe you feel like you've hit an impasse or a wall or a plateau, and you're like, man, I'm not where I want to be yet, and things are not clicking in my life in general. They're not. Maybe it's because you're not seeing clearly, and maybe it's because your vision has been obstructed, and maybe it's through impurities, and maybe those purities, if they were cleansed away, then maybe you could see clearly. And it tells us that those who have a pure heart, they see God, they experience God in a different way. They really live for God, and they can feel God's presence in their life in a powerful way that you can't when you have sin in your life.
We hope you got a lot out of today's teaching. If you'd like to learn more, get connected, or begin to give, you can do so on our website. All the links are there. Check it out. We're glad you stopped by today, and we hope to see you in person very soon.